A couple of weeks ago, we received some really cool new foundation pieces, and today I wanted to talk about several ways in which I've found you can use them to really accentuate various aesthetics that you're looking for within your build. So first off, let's talk about all of the new items. So we have the half 2 meter foundation. We have the quarter pipe. This isn't new, but I want to talk about it anyway because there's something new about it. We also have the inner corner extension, and on top of that we have the outer corner extension. And from here we also have new pipes and the tilted concave wall, and there's two different types. Here we have the half pipe foundation. Now we've had these a while, but the difference is that we now have the ability to change the materials on them. So before we couldn't. So this is a nice new addition, something that I've been wanting for a while. We then have the inner corner extension. This is quite cool for creating circles, which we'll talk about. And then we have the outer corner extensions, which I'm really enjoying at the moment. These can be pushed together. I should say that wasn't circles, but holes. And this one's good for producing circles. And then we have the tilted concave walls. Now, originally I thought they were going to go with a similar piece to the foundations, in which we have the down corner, right? So it would go across like that, but this one actually has the concave inner section. Oh, and before I forget, all of these are unlocked in the Awesome Shop. The new foundations can all be found in the Foundations tab. Here you have the half foundation set and the quarter pipe extensions pack. We also have the concave walls in the tilted walls section there, an extension of what we already have. And you'll also find there are some new items in the management as well. So we have the clean Mark 1 pipeline and the clean Mark 2 pipeline. So starting off, we will have a look at the individual styles that I've been playing around with. And then from there, I'll also show you some applications that I've done in my own factory. So the first thing that I wanted to show you was the outer corner extensions being used to create the square blocks. They do give this little trim, which maybe works for your style build, but in order to do these small square blocks, you're just going to place down one of these, and then above we're going to have to grab a larger or smaller one. If we just place that on top, we can now grab the larger block, and if we turn this, we're going to just place it and then place one underneath. And so here you can see we've created a square block. I mean, it's ever so slightly cornered just on the end, but I think that's pretty close. And we can place these pillars on top so they can become extensions to the supports. The next one is just playing around with the outer corner extensions. We can create these circular pillars. These look great, just a really easy way to add some support to your factory, as you can see here. But we're going to spice this up in a moment. And here we have the, I don't know what kind of shape to call this, but it's kind of like a fin almost. And so I think it works really well along the diagonal when you're doing some kinds of supports. And all it is two of them facing inwards and then two outwards. And then obviously you'd cover this on top. Still on the subject of the quarter pipes, I wanted to talk about the mixing of the materials. So obviously we're using the asphalt here, and then this is just the normal foundation block after. And I quite like that as a way of giving it a border, so to speak. And you can do this on the bottom as well. It looks kind of cool, but more importantly, play around with them more along with the outer corner 1 meter extensions. You can see I've done this here, and then you can play around with the materials really to make it stand out. And I've done this over in my other build that you saw right at the beginning. And then our next one is the half meter foundations. I just played around with these to see how it would look, and I quite like the idea of using a half foundation mixed with 1 meter foundations and then these girders, these beam supports to give it that supported feel. Though this may change in the patch, one thing that is important to note is that in order to get these snapping points, currently I am using a catwalk crossing to create those snapping points for us. You can use the barriers, but they're a little bit more janky for this particular build. And as you can see, these are great ways to be used as supports for your factory, or you may be able to implement them in other ways as well. At the moment, it's all about experimenting and being creative with those pieces to really discover what they're used for. Another one that we've got, which I want to talk about, is this. This particular support looks a little bit more complicated. It's really easy though. I'll break that down now and we'll talk about why this is pretty cool. So in order to do that piece, we are going to grab our outer corner extensions and we're going to use the zoop function here and build our first circle. Now the reason why I'm using asphalt is because this does require clipping and we don't like the Z fighting. So once this is done, we're going to actually remove the bottom level and we're going to just turn it so that we have on each side the circle section facing the inner midpoint. Depending on the positioning, you can get away with using the same style foundation, so you won't need to change the size. And now we've got that done, we're going to just paint it asphalt. And you can see how the Z fighting is much less at this point. Now, what really excites me about this is the fact that we now have a lot more snapping points to a single square of foundation, essentially. Here we can grab these half foundations and place them on the ends. Now this could look great for giving your factory that supported look, like a claw coming up and holding it up, or vice versa at the bottom. But you can also, from here, find the right snapping point, place it in the middle, like so. And I'm sure with a lot more practice and playing around with it, we're going to have many more options available to us. Another thing that you can use these new foundations for is creating shapes. And I've seen many other people create builds using these shapes as additions to their flooring to create patterns, mosaics almost. It's a really nice way just to add a little bit of flair, and though we've only had a handful of new pieces, really, it's what, 4 or 5 pieces, it has allowed us to add a lot more creativity to our builds. But instead of just using them on the floor, we can also use these within our factories themselves, and we're going to talk about how we can implement them now. But before we move on, if you are enjoying the lo-fi music that we have going on in the background, make sure to check out my playlist. It's music that we produce ourselves, and it's copyright free for anyone to have in their videos if you're a content creator or your streams. Do check it out. The link is below. It's perfect to chilling to while playing the game yourself. Whilst I was playing in stream today, I realized that we could actually partner the inner corner extensions with the refineries to give this cool look. And then all we've done is added glass inside of that to make it have this aesthetic. And if you like that, you should see what we've done with the blenders as well. Let's go check it out. So here we have our blenders. Now I've already placed a block so it's at the right height for me. But all we're going to do is to place this just above, and then once we have the half circle, you can see if we go to the edge, it will make it the hole in the middle. And this can obviously be done with a large grid of these to make it stand out. With the refineries, you can see again what we've done. These are using the flat glass roofs. You can actually use the ramped ones. That's what we did for the previous refineries. And then from there, you just fill it in like so. Another thing that we're doing with the refineries at the moment is with these cavity walls. We've created them with those half foundations. We have the power coming in and then running all along the inside. There is one caveat to this, and that is if you grab the wall, you can only place, let me just remove this. You can only place the wall on the outer section of where the full foundation would be. So we can't place it on the inner side. In order to do that, you're going to need to grab your barrier and then replace that holding control. So that's something to bear in mind. On the subject of half foundations, we can now create tunnels as well. So this is just a half-meter foundation, which we've placed down, and then on the other side, done the same, like so, and then covered it with these. You may need to use the walkways in order to get the right clipping or snapping point for these inverted quarter pipes. One thing that you can use the half foundations or these quarter pipes for is to create borders for various things, whether that's around your factory or in this circumstance for the elevators. And if you want, you can extend this to a full foundation and then use the barrier trick to create a snapping point for a wall and place that in front, so you have this wonderful glass wall in front of your elevator, and then we've just added a nice little border around it. That's the exact same technique that I've used with these pillars to create this elevator here, and I've already put it to good use here with this pipe running on the inside. And don't feel that you have to do it just for elevators. Here's what I've done on the outside of this factory's wall, and I'm really liking how this style kind of fits in. It almost looks like it's a working silo. Another thing that I've done on this particular factory is take the inner corner extensions, and I've actually clipped them into one another to create these little tiny eyelets for the funnels to come out of. It's a little bit finicky, and what we've had to do to create that aesthetic, if we just use a painted beam as a funnel, as you can see, if we do a massive hole around them, it looks, I mean, it doesn't look bad, but it's a lot of space. So instead, what we've done is grab our barrier, and from here, we're going to place this on top or against this side. Do that on one side, and then on the other, we'll do the exact same thing. Obviously, this is a bit wider than the previous one. You can go a lot more close up, and then we've covered it in asphalt to remove that Z buffering. Last but not least, I wanted to return to this factory that you saw at the beginning. This is our first attempt at playing around with the new foundation pieces, and there are a few things that I've done here, which I think you might like. First and foremost, we've used the foundations to create a little 1 meter border around the factory. And then secondly, I have the mix of the materials that we talked about earlier from the quarter corners, and then changing the materials and the size to 1 meter to give this kind of ribbed look on the bottom. But I've also matched that with these beams to give it a much more heavy feel to it. I then partnered the outer corners at the top of these pillars with the inner corners to make it look more jagged. They're kind of popping outwards rather than just supporting a straight foundation. And from there it goes into these pillars where we have the half foundations and the glass on the inside. All these jagged features actually, or outcropping features, made the rest of the build feel quite flat and on one level. So I changed that by mixing a half foundation and the quarter curves just on the outside, just a little something that breaks up the flat nature of the original wall. And then finally, I used the outer corners to create fans on the outside of the factory, and I partnered that with those signs. In order to do these fans, it's really quite simple. All you're going to do is have your original wall, and then from here we're going to grab these outer corners. Now notice how they currently snap to the wall. Well, you can turn it so that they're partly on the inside, and then we're just going to run that down to the bottom and change the material. One thing to bear in mind is you could use the coated concrete, and what we're doing on that particular one is also using signs. We are using coated concrete on that one, and we've just painted it black just to give it that dark look. And I'm honestly super happy with how this looks, breaking up the monotony of all factories because it's a curved edge. If you want to know how I've got these signs going vertically, then do check out my video. I'll place a link in the top right section now, but that is all we have time for. If you did like this video, please do drop a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe, as we'll have plenty more content coming soon. Special thanks goes to our amazing supporters, most notably our Solarclipse patrons, Cerebral Tag, James Irwin and Firefly, as well as our Lunars, the Calamity, Dixie Chris and Ben, and our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Papa Snoozy. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.